All right, so we're diving into Mistborn, the deck building game.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. It's a pretty awesome choice, I think.
Definitely.
And it's not, just another deck builder. This is like Brandon Sanderson's magic system is like woven right in.
Yeah, exactly.
So forget a boring rule book read.
Right.
We're going to pull out the cool stuff, the things that make you want to play right now.
Yeah, we're going to skip all the boring stuff and just focus on what makes it unique.
Right.
So I think most people listening probably know the basics of deck building games. You start with a weak deck.
Yeah.
Buy better cards as you go cycle through your deck.
Right, right.
But Mistborn takes that and just goes so much further with it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So enter Allomancy, the heart of the Mistborn world, right?
Yes.
Like burning metal tokens to power up your cards.
Yeah.
Such a cool twist on resource management.
It really is. And it really brings Sanderson's world to life in the game, too.
Yeah.
Because each metal, so pewter, tin, bronze, copper, all the metals you can think of, they all have different effects.
Right.
So it's not just about buying the strongest card.
Right.
It's about, do you have the right metals to use them?
That's where it gets strategic. I see you've got adium tokens over there.
Yeah.
That's got to be a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the books, adium is like super powerful.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Adium is your wild card in this game.
Okay.
So, if you need a specific metal, but you don't have it, you could always burn an adium to substitute for it.
Okay.
But the thing is, you only have a limited amount of adium.
Right.
So every time you burn an adium token, that's a big decision point.
Yeah.
Are you saving it for something big later?
Right.
Or are you using it now to, snag a powerful card?
Decisions.
Lots of tough choices.
Speaking of choices, I noticed each character has like their own little starting deck.
Yes.
And a signature medal. So it's not just like, generic build your deck situation.
Not at all. Every character feels very unique.
Okay.
So take Vin, for example. Her signature metal is pewter.
Makes sense.
And that gives her a little boost of healing every time she burns a pewter.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense with how she fights in the books.
Exactly.
So are we thinking like aggressive deck for Vin, knowing she can take a few hits?
It could be a good strategy.
Yeah.
You could force opponents to overspend on attacks against you.
Right.
While you just keep bouncing back.
Yeah.
But there are other paths you can go down with her, too.
Okay.
It depends on what cards come up and what your play style is.
Right.
But there's lots of different ways you can take her.
Lots of possibilities.
Right.
Okay, so we've got these awesome decks. We got Allomancy powers.
Yeah. How
How do we actually win this thing?
So there's two main paths to victory in Mistborn.
Okay.
There's missions and there's combat.
Okay.
So missions are kind of like objectives in the game.
Uh-huh.
They earn you rewards. They earn you points.
Okay.
And there's this thing called the mission track. And whoever reaches the top of all three tracks first wins the game outright.
Oh, so it's not just like a brawl, it's a race.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Okay, that adds like a whole other layer of pressure.
Right.
So do you find players like specializing in one or the other? Or do they try to do a bit of both?
It often depends on, what character they chose
Okay.
and what cards they drew early on.
Right.
But I would say neglecting either path completely can be risky.
Okay.
Like, let's say you're dominating the mission track,
Uh-huh.
but your opponent is building up this huge combat advantage
Right.
and just wipes you out before you can win.
Ouch. Okay, point taken. Got to stay adaptable.
Yeah.
Speaking of combat, what makes it tick? Is it just like playing the highest attack cards? Just a slugfest?
So in a two-player game, it's basically like that.
Okay.
But once you get to 3 or 4 players,
Okay.
there's this really interesting mechanic called the target.
Okay, the target.
So basically at the end of your turn, all of your attack points have to be aimed at whoever the current target player is.
Oh, so it forces some focus fire.
It does, yeah.
Like everyone's ganging up on one person. Sounds intense.
It can be, but here's the thing.
Okay.
After you take damage, you can pass the target to someone else.
No.
So suddenly,
Okay.
who you attack and when becomes a lot more important.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So you might be like going all in on this one person.
Right.
And then bam, they pass it to their neighbor and now they're sweating.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so I can see how even combat has a lot of strategic depth to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into the cards themselves.
Okay.
We've got action cards and ally cards, right?
We do.
Action cards are your one-time effects.
Yeah.
Like getting money, attacking, healing, all the usual deck building stuff, but with the Allomancy twist.
Right.
So you're not just looking at what the card does,
Right.
but you're looking at, do I have the metals to even use it?
Exactly.
That adds a whole extra layer.
Yeah.
What about ally cards? Those are the ones that stick around, right?
Yeah, ally cards give you ongoing benefits.
Okay.
They also have defense values,
Mhm.
so they can be attacked and defeated.
Oh, so they're not just...
Well, they can be taken out.
Okay.
But some ally cards have special abilities that can really turn the tide of the game.
Ooh, like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so some ally cards have this ability called Defender.
Defender. Okay.
And that means they can protect you and your other allies from attacks.
Nice.
So,
A little bodyguard.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So building up a good team of allies
Right.
can be just as important as building your deck of actions.
Especially if your opponent's going heavy on combat.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are the basics, but there's like a ton of cards in this game.
There are.
So how do they all work together? What should we be looking for when we're building our decks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's where the beauty of allomancy comes in.
Okay.
It's not just about, grabbing the most powerful cards. It's about synergy.
Right.
Can you use like a pewter card's attack to fuel an ally's healing ability?
Ah.
Do you have enough brass to pull off a sneaky soothe effect and disrupt your opponent's hand?
Right.
Those are the kind of questions you're asking as you build your deck.
That makes sense. Like each metal has its own personality, its own way of playing the game.
Exactly.
Speaking of, we talked about allomancy in general, but I'm kind of curious to break down each metal a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's start with pewter, since we mentioned it with Vin.
Sure.
What makes pewter stand out strategically?
So pewter is all about raw power and resilience.
Okay.
If you want to hit hard and keep coming back for more, pewter's your friend.
Right.
A lot of the pewter cards focus on direct attacks,
Okay.
but there's a defensive side to it too, especially some of the ally cards.
Oh, yeah, the defender ability.
Exactly.
Having an ally that can just soak up damage while you're focusing on offense, that's got to be a valuable strategy.
It can be, yeah, especially in the early game.
Right.
When everyone's still kind of building up their decks.
Yeah.
But as the game progresses, other metals might give you a little more strategic options.
Okay.
Take tin, for example.
Tin. Okay.
It's less about brute force and more about control and information.
Ah, tin, the metal of perception.
Exactly.
What kind of advantages does tin offer?
So tin gives you a way to manipulate the mission track,
Okay.
both for yourself and your opponents.
Oh,
So remember those sense cards we were talking about?
yeah.
They can really slow someone down if they're about to reach like a key point on the track.
Sneaky.
Ah.
So tin is for the players who like to play the long game, disrupt their opponent's plans, maybe pull off some clever steals along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. What about bronze? I'm always drawn to the knowledge-seeking metals in Sanderson's books.
Yeah, bronze is fascinating in the game too.
Okay.
It's all about flexibility and adapting to the situation.
Okay.
So the seek ability lets you peek at the market
Okay.
and use the top ability of any action card,
Wait, really?
even if you can't afford to buy it.
So it's like a test drive.
Kind of, yeah.
See what's out there and maybe grab a powerful effect that can turn the tide of the current turn.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that bronze is for players who like to think on their feet, analyze the available options, make the most of unexpected opportunities.
Yeah, it's a less predictable metal,
Right.
but that can be its strength.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. What about copper? It always felt like a more subtle defensive metal in the books. Does that translate to the game?
Definitely, copper is all about protection and mitigation.
Okay.
The cloud abilities can be lifesavers,
Okay.
either reducing incoming damage or blocking it entirely for you and your allies.
Nice.
So if you're facing an aggressive opponent, building up a strong flash, copper defense can be crucial.
Makes sense. It's not flashy, but it can win you the game by simply outlasting your opponents.
Exactly.
Like the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race right now for something a bit more chaotic. What about zinc?
Zinc the amplifier.
Okay.
This metal is all about getting the most out of your ally cards.
All right.
So zinc can boost their abilities,
Uh-huh.
trigger them multiple times, or even activate them without spending precious metal tokens.
That sounds really powerful, but potentially unpredictable.
It can be, yeah.
Are there any risks involved with going heavy on zinc?
There's always a balance.
Yeah.
Relying too much on zinc can make you vulnerable if you draw the wrong cards or your opponents disrupt your ally synergy.
So high risk, high reward.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. All right, moving on to the more manipulative side of things. What about brass?
Brass is the metal of subtle influence and control.
Okay.
So it can help you generate resources, manipulate the mission track, and even eliminate cards from the game entirely.
Oh, wow.
So the soothe ability can be particularly powerful.
Okay.
You can use it to prune your own deck or to disrupt your opponent's plans.
So it's like you're playing a psychological game,
Kind of, yeah.
subtly nudging things in your favor. I bet brass is popular with players who like to think outside the box, find unconventional solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're on a roll. 2 metals left, iron and steel. Iron seems like the metal of preparation, at least based on the books. How does that play out in the game?
Yeah, so iron is all about setting yourself up for future turns.
Okay.
It can help you manipulate your deck, draw specific cards, even recover from setbacks.
Okay.
So the pull ability lets you take cards from your discard pile and put them on top of your deck.
Oh.
So you know you have the right tool for the job when you need it.
So it's like planning ahead, anticipating your needs, building a solid foundation for your strategy.
Exactly.
I bet iron is popular with players who like to control their destiny and minimize the element of chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and finally we have steel, the metal of forceful action and disruption.
Yes, steal the metal of Kelsier himself.
I'm guessing this is the go-to metal for players who like to play aggressively.
Absolutely. Steel is all about taking charge, dictating the terms of the game, and pushing your opponents into uncomfortable positions.
Okay.
It gives you the tools to attack, to generate resources, and even to manipulate the market to your advantage.
And I bet the push ability is a favorite among steel users.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to eliminate cards from the market entirely, that's a powerful way to control the flow of the game.
It is, yeah. Steel players are often the ones who are setting the pace, forcing reactions, and keeping their opponents on the defensive.
Right.
They're not afraid to make bold moves and disrupt the status quo.
So each metal really does have its own personality, its own way of approaching the game.
Yeah.
It's not just about the raw power of a card, it's about how that card fits into your overall strategy and how you use its allomantic properties to your advantage.
Right, and that's where the real depth of Mistborn lies.
Yeah.
It's not just about building a powerful deck, it's about mastering the art of allomancy.
Right.
Understanding the nuances of each metal and finding those synergistic combinations that can lead to some really spectacular plays.
Okay, we've talked about the metals, the cards, the different paths to victory, but I'm curious to learn more about those character-specific abilities you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We know they unlock through the training track, but can you give us some concrete examples of how they impact gameplay?
Absolutely. So let's start with Kelsier, since we were just talking about steel.
Yep, okay.
His ability really plays into that aggressive take charge style.
Okay, I'm all ears. What does Kelsier bring to the table?
So Kelsier's unique ability allows him to deal extra damage to the target
Okay.
whenever he passes it to another player.
Ouch. So
Yeah.
not only is he a threat in combat, but he also makes passing the target a strategic decision for everyone else.
Exactly.
Okay, that definitely makes Kelsier a force to be reckoned with, especially in a crowded game.
Yeah, and then you have Ven, whose ability leans into her agility and adaptability.
Okay.
So she can discard cards from her hand to refresh any flared metal tokens.
Oh, so she can push her allomantic powers further than most, knowing she has a way to recover more quickly.
Exactly. She's always pushing the limits,
Yeah.
finding ways to bend the rules to her advantage.
And then there's Sazazed.
Yes.
His ability must reflect his wisdom and knowledge-seeking nature.
It does so whenever Sazed burns an Atium token,
Okay.
he gets to draw an extra card.
So he's rewarded for using Atium wisely, carefully choosing the moments when that wildcard power is most needed.
Exactly. He's always gathering information,
Right.
expanding his understanding and finding the most efficient path forward.
And lastly, we have Ham.
Yes,
His ability must be all about cunning and resourcefulness.
it is.
What does he do?
So Ham gets to steal coins from other players whenever he moves up on the mission track.
Oh, sneaky.
So he's progressing towards victory,
Right.
but he's also undermining his opponent's ability to buy cards.
That's a classic Ham move.
It is.
Always finding a way to profit from any situation.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's just a taste of the unique abilities each character brings to the table.
Yeah.
They add a whole other layer of strategy to the game, making each playthrough feel different and rewarding.
They really do.
It's like you're not just playing a game, you're embodying a character, stepping into their shoes and using their unique powers to achieve your goals. That's what I love about games that are tied to strong narratives. They allow you to experience those stories in a whole new way.
I agree.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the allomancy system, the different metals, the cards, the characters, the paths to victory. But there's one more aspect of the game I'd like to delve into: the training track.
Yeah.
It seems like more than just a way to unlock abilities, it's a core part of the game's progression.
You're right. The training track is where a lot of the strategic decisions come into play.
Okay.
It's not just a linear path. It offers you branching paths and choices that can shape your character's development.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about unlocking predetermined abilities. It's about customizing your character's growth based on your strategy and the cards you draw.
Exactly. As you move up the track, you encounter rewards that offer you a choice between two options. Do you want to gain an ADM token for more flexibility, or do you want to unlock a new ability that might synergize better with your current deck?
Hmm.
Those decisions really matter.
So even though the training track provides a framework for progression, it still allows for player agency and adaptation.
It does.
I love that it keeps the game fresh and engaging even after multiple playthroughs.
It does, and the rewards on the training track can be quite impactful.
Okay.
Some might grant you extra metal burns,
Uh-huh.
allowing you to activate more powerful card abilities.
Right.
Others might unlock unique abilities that can completely change the course of the game.
Speaking of impactful, we can't forget about the Lord Ruler, especially for those playing solo or cooperative modes.
Right.
What sets those experiences apart from competitive play?
So playing as the Lord Ruler is like facing a constantly evolving puzzle.
Okay.
He has his own deck filled with adversary and edict cards that can really shake things up.
We briefly touched on those cards earlier, but I'd love to dive a little deeper. What kind of challenges do adversaries present?
So adversaries are like mini-bosses,
Uh-huh.
each with their own persistent effects and shield values that you need to overcome.
Okay.
Some, like the Steel Inquisitor, punish you for using Alomancy.
Uh-huh.
They'll force you to discard cards whenever you burn metals.
Right?
Others, like the Hulking Kolas,
Yeah.
they prevent you from healing.
Oh.
So every point of damage really counts.
That sounds intense. Like you have to constantly adjust your strategy based on which adversaries are in play.
Yeah, you do.
What about edict cards? How do they impact the game?
So edict cards represent the Lord Ruler's direct actions.
Okay.
They can weaken the players, strengthen the Lord Ruler himself, or even manipulate the game state in unpredictable ways.
Okay.
For example, increased dominance strengthens the Lord Ruler's power.
Dominance, is that like a separate track we need to worry about?
Yes, the Lord Ruler has a dominance track,
Okay.
which represents his level of control and influence over the game.
Okay.
So as his dominance increases, he gains new abilities and becomes more dangerous. So it's crucial to keep his dominance in check.
Right.
But some edict cards can make that a real challenge.
Okay, so you're not just battling the Lord Ruler's minions. You're also trying to prevent him from becoming too powerful. It's like a multi-layered puzzle, requiring you to think several steps ahead and adapt to his ever-changing tactics.
Exactly. And that's what makes the solo and cooperative modes so engaging.
Right.
You're constantly on your toes trying to outmaneuver a powerful and unpredictable opponent.
It's like a test of your allomantic mastery, your ability to use every tool at your disposal to overcome the challenges the Lord Ruler throws at you.
Yeah, I like that.
Speaking of tools, I'm curious to hear more about the different types of action and ally cards.
Okay.
We've discussed their general functions, but I'd love to get a sense of the variety and strategic possibilities they offer.
Yeah, there's a whole world of card combinations and synergies to explore.
Okay.
Action cards range from simple effects like gaining coins or drawing cards
Mm-hmm.
to more complex abilities that manipulate metals, activate allies, or directly attack opponents. And ally cards come in all shapes and sizes, offering a wide range of benefits and special abilities.
Can you give us some specific examples of cards that really showcase the depth and strategic possibilities of the game?
Sure.
Like maybe a card that surprised you with its effectiveness or one that led to a particularly memorable moment during a playthrough.
Yeah, so there's this one action card that always catches people off guard.
Okay.
It's called Hemalurgic.
Hemalurgic. Okay.
It doesn't look like much at first glance,
Right.
but its effect can be devastating if used correctly.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What does Hemalurgic do?
So it forces your opponent to discard a card
Okay.
for each Hemalurgic spike they have on their character card.
Right. Hemalurgic spikes are a key element of Sanderson's magic system, often used to steal powers from others.
Exactly.
So the more powerful your opponent's character, the more spikes they likely have,
Right.
making them vulnerable to Hemalurgic's effect.
Exactly. It's a card that rewards you for understanding the lore and paying attention to your opponent's character choices.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it can completely shift the balance of power, especially if your opponent was relying on a handful of powerful cards.
Okay, that's an awesome action card. What about an ally card that stands out?
So there's an ally called the Keepers,
The Keepers. Okay.
and they represent Sazed's order of historians and lore masters. Their ability is simple, but incredibly effective.
Right.
They reduce the cost of buying any card by 1 coin.
Wait, any card?
Any card.
That's huge. Suddenly, all those expensive, powerful cards become much more accessible.
Exactly. The keepers can completely change your deck building strategy,
Yeah,
allowing you to acquire cards you might not have considered before.
right.
And they synergize well with metals like brass and steel,
Uh-huh.
which can generate extra coins or manipulate the market to further reduce costs.
Okay, I'm starting to see how the real power of Mistborn lies in those unexpected combinations.
Yeah.
Those synergies that emerge when you start experimenting and pushing the boundaries of the game's mechanics.
That's where the real fun begins.
Right.
Discovering those hidden gems, those unexpected strategies,
Yeah.
those moments when everything clicks and you pull off a move that leaves your opponent speechless.
It's like you're not just playing a game, you're creating a story, a unique narrative that unfolds with every card you play and every decision you make, and that's what makes Mistborn, the deck building game, such a compelling and rewarding experience.
Absolutely. It's a game that invites you to explore, to experiment, to delve into the depths of Sanderson's world and discover the true potential of Alamancy.
Right.
And who knows, maybe you'll uncover a strategy, a combination of cards,
Yeah.
a hidden synergy that no one has ever seen before.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one thing that keeps nagging at me.
Okay?
We've talked about combat missions and even the Lord Ruler's dominance.
Right.
But how does it all come together in terms of actually winning the game?
Right.
Is it a race to the finish line? Or are there more nuanced paths to victory?
Yeah, it's not always about like a single winner-takes-all moment. There are multiple ways to achieve victory.
Okay.
And they can even kind of change depending on the choices you and your opponents make throughout the game.
Okay, that's interesting.
So we've talked about the mission track
Yeah.
and how, being the first to reach the top of all 3 tracks guarantees a win.
Right.
But there's also the combat aspect to consider.
Right, so even if you're lagging behind on missions, you could still pull off a victory by strategically taking out your opponents.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, let's say you've built a deck that focuses on powerful attacks
Uh-huh.
and has a few well-chosen allies with defender abilities to protect you.
Okay.
You might intentionally let others focus on missions
Right.
while you build up your combat strength
Yeah.
and then strike when they're vulnerable.
That's devious.
It can be.
So it's almost like a mind game.
Yeah.
Figuring out which path your opponents are prioritizing
Right.
and then either racing them to the finish line or finding a way to disrupt their strategy entirely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Mistborn so dynamic. You have to constantly read the board state,
Yeah.
anticipate your opponent's moves, and be ready to adapt your own strategy on the fly.
Okay, that makes me think of like the different metals and how they might influence your approach to winning.
Yeah.
Would a pewter-heavy deck be more likely to go for the combat victory,
Possibly.
while a tin player might be more focused on the mission track?
There are definitely tendencies, like you said, pewter's raw power lends itself well to combat,
Right.
while tin's manipulation of the mission track can give you a significant edge in that area.
Uh-huh.
But you have to remember, every metal has its strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
So,
A player who's solely focused on combat might be caught off guard by a well-timed sense card
exactly.
that slows them down on the mission track,
Right?
giving a tin player the chance to slip past and snatch victory.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the interplay between those different paths to victory
Right?
and how your metal choices can influence your chances of success.
And don't forget about those character-specific abilities. Oh, yeah, for sure.
They can really tip the scales in one direction or another,
Right.
like Kelsier's ability to deal extra damage when passing the target.
Yeah,
That might make a combat victory more appealing, knowing you have that extra edge in a fight.
he could.
Or Vin's ability to refresh flared metals by discarding cards might encourage a more aggressive style,
Right.
both in combat and on the mission track, knowing she can push her Alomancy further than most.
Exactly. It all ties together.
It's amazing how so many seemingly separate elements of the game, like the metals, the characters, the cards, the different paths to victory, all weave together to create this tapestry of strategic possibilities.
It really is.
It's like a puzzle box where each piece has its own unique function, but also interacts with all the other pieces in fascinating ways.
And that's what keeps players coming back to Mistborn.
Yeah.
There's always something new to discover, a different combination to try, a hidden synergy to exploit.
It's a game that rewards experimentation, creativity, and a deep understanding of both the mechanics and the lore that inspired it. Absolutely. And for those looking for an even deeper challenge, there's always the Lord Ruler weighting in the solo and cooperative modes.
Yeah, we've talked about how those modes offer a unique experience with Lord Ruler's adversary and edict cards constantly throwing wrenches into your plans. But I'm curious, is victory against the Lord Ruler achieved in the same way as in competitive play?
So the core mechanics remain the same, but the strategic approach shifts dramatically.
Okay.
So while you can still win by reaching the top of the mission tracks,
Right.
the Lord Ruler's dominance track becomes a crucial element.
Right. We talked about how his dominance level represents his growing power and influence over the game. So I'm guessing simply racing to the top of the mission tracks might not be enough.
Exactly. You have to be mindful of the Lord Ruler's dominance level
Uh-huh.
and try to keep it in check.
Okay.
Some of his edict cards can significantly increase his dominance,
Right.
granting him new abilities and making him much more difficult to defeat.
So it's almost like a dual objective.
Yeah.
You have to progress on the mission track
Yeah.
while also managing the Lord Ruler's dominance level, preventing him from becoming too powerful.
It's a delicate balancing act,
Right.
requiring careful planning, resource management, and a willingness to adapt your strategy as the situation demands.
Okay.
And that's where the real challenge lies, in those solo and cooperative modes.
Right.
It's not just about winning, it's about surviving against an opponent who's constantly evolving and adapting to your moves.
It's like a strategic dance, anticipating the Lord Ruler's next move and finding ways to counter his abilities while simultaneously progressing towards your own objectives.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's a dance that requires mastery of Lomancy, a
Wow.
deep understanding of the cards and their synergies, and a bit of luck along the way.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling incredibly inspired to start playing Mistborn right now.
Me too.
We've delved into the depths of this game, exploring the mechanics, the strategies, the characters, the different paths to victory, and even the challenges of facing the Lord Ruler himself.
It's a game that offers something for everyone, whether you're a seasoned deck-building veteran or a newcomer to the world of Alomancy.
And what's so exciting is that this is just the beginning.
Right?
With expansions on the horizon, promising new characters, new mechanics, and even more allomantic metals to explore.
I can't wait.
The possibilities are truly endless. So grab your metal tokens, choose your Mistborn, and prepare to immerse yourself in a world of strategic depth, thrilling challenges, and endless possibilities.
Sounds good.
And as you embark on your allomantic journey, remember the words of Kelsier. There's always another secret. Keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, have fun.
Until next time, happy gaming.